one of the characters from the Jaded Duology ruined my book. But it actually worked in my favor, so I'll take it. Let's back up a little bit. As writers, no matter what plans you have laid, there very well may be a character that bullies their way into having a bigger role in your book. So even if you've plotted, even if you're pantsing, it doesn't matter if you know everything that's happening. You may find, and I have found in several of my books, that there are characters that were supposed to be in for a line or two or like a scene. And they just bullied their way into having not only an important role, but like a very important secondary main character role in my book. And this character actually, their bullying got them a very big important part inside of this story, but really just landed this person as a huge part of the sequel, the second book in the duology. And I was very angry for a long time. I've told you who this person is. I'm not going to say it here. I'm going to be vague about it so that we don't get too spoilery. But I have told you about this in other episodes and live streams before. So if you want to know who this is, A, it's pretty easy to figure out when you read it. And B, you can go back and watch some of those other episodes as well. But I started writing this book. I knew where I was going, what I was doing, how I was doing it. And I got to a scene where I kind of needed certain types of dialogue. And so I created this character that fit into what we were doing. And all of a sudden, this person just kind of sparked. Like the dialogue was really good. And so I gave this person a little bit more. And a little bit more. And then this person popped up later on. Like I could tell this person was going to come back for another scene, which I thought great. Like 2 scenes facilitates the conversation, gets them moving. Awesome. Except it became so important. This person became so important to the storyline that they built themselves a main character role. And I had to go back into my story and sprinkle little bits of this person earlier in the book because I needed to accommodate it. I needed to make it a big thing. Now, when I finished writing this story, I was so angry with this character. It was like a love-hate relationship. We love now, but we hated at first. And I was so angry. I was so mad because this person hijacked my story. And for the better, I acknowledge that it was for the better, but they frustrated me. The things that they did, the way that they said, the way that they engaged with me, very confrontational with me as the author. So I like to think of it as kind of like, you know, an actor kind of bickering with the person writing the script. And this really, truly was what that character did. And by the time I got the first book out, everybody loved this character. I started to soften toward this character, and I started to write the second book where this character was now even more heavily featured because of the actions at the end of this story, obviously going to dramatically impact that second book and really just change the entire trajectory of the second book. The ending of the second book stayed very true to what I had wanted to do, but I didn't have a ton of things planned for that second book. I just kind of knew we were getting from point B to point C. And so they just heavily influenced it. And the more I wrote, the more I understood the backstory, the more I understood where they were coming from and why they were doing the things that they were doing, the more I just fell in love with this character. And now I adore this character. In fact, I have gone on to say that this character is probably one of the favorites that I've ever written, probably one of my favorite leading somethings. I'm being vague. I have to be vague about it, but one of my favorite leading somethings. And they just changed it because they bullied their way into having a couple extra lines in a scene, and then they forced their way into a secondary scene, and then they became so instrumental to the entire series. They, I would argue, are more important than the love interest in the story. So our main character, Jade's always, of course, going to be the main focus, the main character, the most important one. But I would argue that this person has become the second most important thing in this entire series and changed everything. So yes, my character ruined my book. Just completely hijacked what I was going to do. And I was real angry about it for a long time, but man, am I grateful for it now. So if your characters are starting to bully you, if they're trying to hijack what you're doing, maybe play it out. See what happens, because it could change the entire trajectory of the story, of the series, of the arc that you're doing. And it might be for so much better than you could imagine. This one absolutely was. They ruined my story. They ruined my story. But thank God they did. Drop your questions down below. If you want to take a look at who this was and how this happened, the Jaded Duology is free in ebook form on all major platforms, so you can actually read through it. You can find out who it is. You'll know. You'll know when you see them. And you will see why I was so angry with them for a very long time. But now we love them. You can actually see my adoration for this character in the sequel, Risen. You can see it, you can tell, you know exactly why. So grab your copies today, go ahead and read through it, see how this is, drop your questions down below and follow along for more behind the scenes on author life and how you can be implementing it into your author or your reader life as well so that you can live out your awesome author dreams while also still having a life. We'll see you then.